AYG Academy. The academy was founded in 2020 during COVID, and it is a platform to promote Ayurveda, yoga, and Garbhasanskar. And the academy has trained a lot of yoga teachers all these years. And we have a website www.drnutan.com, and there are various online and offline courses that we can go through and learn through this academy. So quickly, over to you, Dr. Nutan.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa. Good evening, everyone, and I welcome you all on this platform, AYG Academy, where we promote mainly Ayurved, Yoga, and Garbhasanskar. And it's very nice to connect people from UK and mainly Dr. Neha Sharma, who has been, joined our academy as a collaborator and partner in terms of, doing research and trying to understand the role of Garbhasanskar in pregnancy as well as in yoga field, because nowadays prenatal yoga has become so much popular and people are practicing it. But then again, we need to take one step ahead if we want to prove it, how it affects. And mainly in addition to Garbhasanskar, that is Indian science of well-being, and how you can add some value, incredible value in your child right from the conception, and you can also practice a lot of activity which we suggest during pregnancy to pregnant women. So that I think if we allow that to educate yoga teachers specifically, it really adds value, and that's what we are trying to do together, me and Dr. Neha. And I really thanks for the efforts made by Dr. Neha and our Arogyam. Now let me introduce to Dr. Neha, because many of you might be knowing, because we did our first part of the same session 2 weeks before. But still, for the new participant, okay, may I request everybody to please mute your mic so that we will have it. Okay, let me do mute all 1 minute. Okay, so I have muted everybody. Fine. So you need to understand this is very, very important session where we are going to discuss about the small research or survey we did after the session of Dr. Neha in last couple of weeks, finding out effectiveness of prenatal yoga. And the teachers participated in this report is mainly who did this course and who are trying to implement this knowledge practically. So their views will be discussed, and what exactly output is there that we are going to discuss in this session. But yes, what I was saying is about Dr. Neha Sharma. Dr. Neha Sharma is research scientist, and we are glad that she has been literally working since last 16 years with WHO, as well as she is founder of Arogyam UK, and she is running so many programs and making all the efforts of people like me, proving it scientifically. So it's really blessing for us, AYG Academy, that she joins us and helping us in this. So over to you, Dr. Neha. I would not take much time. So let's begin our session. Yeah. Maybe some participants will join, keep on joining, but we can begin because time is very important part, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nutan, and thank you everybody who could join and who are still listening us on YouTube or other platforms. I'll start with an apology with my throat and voice. It's a bit shaky with the constant viral infections going on, but hopefully I'll make it without any interruption. Last week, we had our first session on why research. So just a very quick recap. Now I see we have practitioners here, which is good to see, the people who work with people, take care of people in any way, by yoga, by Ayurveda, by any alternative or any conventional healings. So if I take a quick question, and just raise your hand if you can, it would be nice for me to know, and for us to know that where this discussion is important, why research is important. So if I say research, we all understand it is an important part of master's, a degree, a PhD, a research paper, joining a university. It's a career in itself. So how many of you as a practitioners do you think the research is actually relevant or have any benefit to you? Because you're not thinking about going to university, taking a degree, or publishing a paper, because that has no academic value in your practice as such. So do you really think that research is important for practitioners in your practice, or it is anyway close to important discussion to be involved actively? So I would just request you to raise hand if you think it is important or it's not. It is important, then raise your hand so that I know. If you're not raising your hand, then wonderful. So the two people, they are already biased. Because I know Shilpa ji is already with Academy. So she understands, she heard me last session. So she understands why research is important. So now her concept of research is already, I manipulated. So I would say biased. Dr. Bharti herself is a principal investigator. So yes, I consider their opinion as a researcher rather than purely practitioners. So they have a lot to contribute because they have contributed as a researcher practitioners. Now, rest all, majority, not you all, but majority don't understand it's relevant. Why do we do research and why do part of research? Now, a simple thing I tell you, the research doesn't happen in academics, just sitting on my own department or anywhere I am associated. The true real world research findings happens in practice where you work. Now, if we don't have an active engagement conversation, lucky me that I met Dr. Nutan and I understand Garbhasanskar from her perspective so that I understand what changes it might be bringing because she tells me, and then I interpret in the research language. But if I wouldn't have met her or all of you, I would have no way of knowing in all these years that there is something Garbhasanskar which has an influential impact on pregnancy, not only women, but the newborn, the child, even for certain extent for rest of his life. So this is important that we have an active communication. Now, what benefit it will bring to you? You care about people. Research is all about people. Research is not about publishing paper, taking a degree. It is all about caring for people. So if you have a vital information which could help other people, that would be very important to share so that more people know. Now, in coronavirus, we all understood why research is important. Because if we won't have the research active, ongoing every time, we wouldn't have made a vaccine so quickly. We wouldn't have known that how mutant is changing. Now we have an app in the UK and India as well, Arogya Setu, if I'm not mistaken. So this app collects the information people share directly. So the researchers knows what people experiencing. That's one way of knowing. But a lot of time people don't know. So for example, if something is happening to me, as a practitioner, as a doctor, I am not a doctor, let's say, and then I don't know what is happening. I'll just talk about the symptoms or what my understanding it is. But the practitioners like you can correlate. You can make sense of the symptoms to the journey, and you can connect the dots to say, actually, it's not yoga. It's a combined effect of yoga and Garbhasanskar. The whole counseling method along coming with is better making change. It could be anything. It's just an example, but practitioners are the vital role of research. This is where we have a complete different research areas, which is called practitioners research, practice research, action research. There are many names which defines that we have a collaborative, active participation of practitioners, people who care for people. If you care for people, if you know what's helping them, if you know what's not helping them, this is time that we work together, we make the difference together. Now, in just a quick example that during COVID-19, we all adapted with so many things. Now, what do we know what's working? Now, going on Zoom, there are so many meetings. Does it really help the social health? Actually, it negatively impacts the social health. That's what some of the studies also point out to digital damage, because people are constantly on the screen now. So again, it's a constant learning. So if you're interested in improving your practice with the constant learning, research is your key, because then you understand what is happening, why it's happening, and you can make changes in your little practice. When I say little, doesn't mean small practice, individual practice, and the change you make in your own area, in your practice, can actually be replicated to the larger sample at some point of time. So if you care for people, you are interested in learning, improving your practice, you want to contribute to science, society, and communities, then research is for you. You cannot be out of this loop because you are the main contributor. So where researchers like us, we go on standby and we just listen and we understand that how it's helping. Now, the last week we talked about, I asked, because a lot of you, again, were not relating how we are going to be doing research. Because again, I understand from the survey which I received later on that most of you also have a master's. So research was part of a degree which you completed wonderfully, and congratulations who did that. But after that, research is not relevant in your practice because that's what we mostly learn in our academic degree. I'm done PhD, what do I do with this? I get a job, I do a job, but then research is end of the story because I do my job now. I do a lot of things, but then I'm not doing research on my own. So if you do that, how do we do? So we talked last week about different way of contributing, and I turned the tables around and I requested all of you to share what you think is happening in your practice. And believe me, what I understood is the challenges of the pregnant woman. Even though the whole session we were talking about Garbhasanskar, it did come up, but it also came up, which was not even my focus area, Dr. Nutan's area to think about. But because you shared, we understood that a lot of challenges pregnant woman is experiencing is not her personal, it's a lot of time contributed by people around her. Her fear, her stigma, her limitations, her confusions a lot of time, and that becomes a barrier in your practice. So that's the key we learned from you, and you taught us. Now, what do we do with this learning? So me and Dr. Nutan did a scoping project in this week, 2 weeks time when we did the first session. This scoping project aiming was to understand what is the scope of Garbhasanskar and working together for people taking forward Garbhasanskar. I'm not actively doing testing here, so don't be scared of me. I won't be asking any data or anything which will go in the testing or publications, but this is for understanding, making a scope that how we improve the scenario in the pregnancy, maternal care, child care, in the early infant care. And if Garbhasanskar is a tool, how we implement, because challenges were shared. So we did this scoping project with an online survey, and 30 of Academy's previous students participated. We requested them to have anonymized data sharing. So, nobody has a pressure to praise or to criticize or anything of, knowing. So anonymization gave us a freedom to get a very honest opinion, one. The second, the data sharing becomes easier because understanding data is a vital information. If I'm not asking about your phone number, addresses, you have nothing to concern. And what all I'm asking about your experience, which can contribute to the significant benefit of society, especially for maternal health, for pregnancy, and for childcare. So you have no worries. You can come forward, you can talk, which you did. And what we found was, again, a magnificent finding. Now, this is no academic research. There's no study taken place. And what we found was 30 of them were highly qualified yoga teachers. So they are done their master's or equivalent training. So when I say highly qualified yoga teachers, I mean they know research, they know some aspect, they understand the observations. So their words is actually considerably as valid as any practitioners with a long history of practice as well. So some of them has not yet started their practice of Garbhasanskar, so they could not contribute. They were very honest sharing that. So we acknowledge that also. But then people who had experience of 4 to 6 years and above, they shared their significant challenges and how Garbhasanskar training with AYG does, it does bridge those gaps. Now, this is interesting to know for us who has no idea of Garbhasanskar. So if I understand that there are challenges when I think of my journey or journey of my friends or family who I have seen going through this period, even when we have children growing up, we understand that challenges are tremendous. And I wish we had this knowledge before. That is always a question we always have mind as we start to learn, start to grow. The very amazing finding was there were some pregnant women who actually took the Garbhasanskar, and they shared their experience of how this course or understanding, I would rather say understanding rather than course, because what Dr. Nutan has designed, what I understand, and I studied responses, I would not say it's just an academic, a degree or a course like we do trainings. It's more like a living experience she has created for people. So when people started to use that in their practices, they found it that it is bridging a lot of gaps in terms of their confidence, their practice, their self-esteem, and a lot of high-risk pregnancies. Now, these high-risk pregnancies are constantly observed by top consultants in India and UK everywhere. So what to worry? But her worries is not medical worries. Her worries go extended to the child. Will he be normal? What if he comes back with? What if are so big that no consultant can assure her that it won't happen? Because medically, they cannot even assure it won't happen. We know the chances. So how we help her? So these kind of living experiences, practitioners who do constantly support these patients, participants, or community to go through these experiences with some easy tools and say, look, we know from so-and-so text, we know for sure that if you follow this, this is not going to happen. Even you can change and reverse the impact, negative impact. Now, the last session I attended was eye-opening for me. We always thought that what we go through as an experience and what child experiences from mother, and especially if she has gone through any significant trauma, then the impact carries in the child. We know medically this is true. But when Dr. Nutan organized Dr. Patil's session, one thing we also learned that Garbhasanskar can reverse these challenges. Ayurveda or yoga practices can actually reverse. Now, medically, it is impossible. If I say that child will not have any medical consequences, mental health consequences, I might not be telling the fact-based because fact says otherwise. But if Garbhasanskar can reverse, this is worth knowing. So how does it do? Generation, we have been listening that you listen good, you be happy. So there is something in this knowledge. This is what Garbhasanskar is putting into practice. So coming back to our survey, what we have found that it's not about the course. This is no course, what I would put it together. I would say this is more of practice. This is more of integrating highly scientific designed methodology into the maternal care. Now, it doesn't stop with Ayurveda. I'm sorry.
Okay, take your time.
Sorry.
Drink water.
Yes.
I will just talk a little bit in between. No problem.
Yes, sorry about
So,
that.
yes, no problem. So whatever Dr. Neha is sharing here regarding the research we did recently about all the teachers who have participated, they literally given us that the practical aspect. And currently I am also doing Insta Live with my student, so that they can come up with the whatever the practically they were going through and how they are using, how the client coming up with the complaints and everything. So that's why we thought of doing all those activities which will give a little bit more grade to Garbhasanskar specifically, because this is again one more science which has to be promoted widely. That is what my effort, conducting this session and doing research with Dr. Neha. Okay, are you okay, Dr. Neha? Okay.
Yes,
Over to
thank you.
Yes.
Yes. So as Dr. Nutan said, challenges, and these challenges are real. Accepting them and finding a ways out, talking and sharing